بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to the 10 of Qur'an Recitation Mastery. In this lesson, we will talk about the sun and moon letters. What do you mean by the sun letters and what do you mean by moon letters? The previous lessons, we already talked about the diacritical marks, which are the short vowels, the tanween, the shadda, the sukun. We talked about every one of them, and I think you should understand by now. So let's move on to sun and moon letters. But before that, I said shadda is the short form of, okay, let's say one letter as shadda. The long form of that letter is that letter with shadda and the letter with a short vowel. For example, shin shadda fatha sha. So we say that the long form of that, the simplification of that, or the breakdown of that is Shin Sukun and then Shin Fatha, not Shin Fatha and Shin Sukun, but Shin Sukun and Shin Fatha. Shin Sukun comes first, Sukun comes first before the one with short vowel. Now, I think you understand now that by now. So let's move on to definite article. Now, I need to explain this before we move on to sun and moon later so you would understand better. Just as we have definite article in English, we also have it in Arabic. The definite article THED is represented by alif and lam in Arabic. Instead of we saying the bait, we say al bait. Now, okay, just as the is a prefix, so also is alif and lam. So they are added to a word at its beginning. You know, when you want to say the house, the comes first before the house. So the same way we have it in Arabic. Alif and lam comes first before the word we want to talk about. So now you should know the difference between definite and indefinite article. Why is it called definite and why is it called indefinite? Okay, let me say house is beautiful. You'll be like, house is beautiful. Which house is beautiful? Which house are you talking about? But when I say the house is beautiful, the person I'm talking to would have known that, okay, the house is beautiful. The house is beautiful. Maybe we've been talking about some things before, and I just said, wow, the house is beautiful. The person would have already known what I'm talking about. But when I say house is beautiful, the sentence is kind of incomplete. You get it? So that means it is indefinite. Saying okay, house is indefinite, but when I say the house, it is what definite. Now the same thing in Arabic. So in Arabic, bait means house, okay? And then when we say bait, it means house, then house is an indefinite article. But when I say al bayt, it's what? It's a definite article because it has alif and lam. Therefore, right. So the way you pronounce words that starts with alif and lam differs, and that brings about sun and moon letters exactly. So the way I said al-baytu, that's not always the case with all the letters, okay? So let's get into that already. Now, sun and moon letters. The pronunciation of words that starts with alif and lam differs, and that brings about this topic. I said that before. There are equal distribution of letters in both category, and then we have 28 letters, okay? And then when you say equal distribution, that means you have to divide them into two. So we just have 14 each. Sun letters are 14, moon letters are 14. So let's talk about sun letters. Sun letters are the letters that when placed at the beginning of a word and preceded by the definite article al, meaning the pronunciation of the whole word, that is the word plus definite article, changes in a way that the lam in the article al is dropped. That is, it's not pronounced, and then the alif in the same article is connected to the first letter, blah blah blah. So this is just theory. Let me explain it. When you have alif and lam before any of the sound letters, you give the alif fatha and then you drop the lam. That means you wouldn't pronounce the lam. Just join the alif to the sound letter directly. Don't bother to pronounce the lam. Like, okay, for example, when you have a shamsu, shin is a sound letter, right? So you can see that I didn't say al shamsu, but ashamsu. So you have to drop the lam and then pronounce, just act as if you didn't see the lam there. So just pronounce the alif and join it together with the letter straight away. So the letters are ta, tha, dal, dhal, ra, zay, sin, shin, sad, bad, ba, va, lam, and nun. Okay, so we have 14 letters. You don't need to memorize these letters. Okay, you just have to understand, and then how you understand, I would explain that also. How you can able to identify them in a word or sentence. So now, when alif and lam comes before any of these 14 letters, you are to drop the lam. That means you don't have to pronounce the lam. Just pronounce your alif and go straight to the letter. Okay. So example, we have ashamsu. Ashamsu. Now, what you should note here that is that the alif takes fatha, right? The lam doesn't take anything. And then we have the shin. The shin takes shidda. And we said that shin, shidda is the combination of the letter with sukun and the letter with a short vowel. So here we have shin, sukun, and shin fatha. And one thing you should know is that a letter that has shidda can never come before a letter that has sukun can never come before a letter that has sukun. That means you can't have two different letters or even the same letter having sukun and then beside each other at the same time. For example, now when we have, okay, let's say we have just lam sukun, then we have shin sukun. There is no way you can pronounce that. So here our lam would be dropped. You don't have to pronounce the lam. And then the next letter, if it's a sound letter, it will have shidda. That's the way you represent, you can recognize them. In the sense that when you see alif and lam before any of the sound letters, the sound letter would take shidda. The alif would take fatha. And then the alif won't always take fatha, but we'll talk about Hamzatul Wasl later. It's always with Hamzatul Wasl, but there anyway you have to give it fatha. We'll talk about that, I think, in the next in the next few days or in the 12th lesson, inshallah. So the alif would take fatha, the lam would be dropped, and then the shin, or let me say any of the sound letters, when you have them after alif and lam, they must have shadda. That's the way you can identify them. When you see a letter immediately after the alif and lam taking shadda, any letter taking shadda, any letter that takes shadda after alif and lam is regarded to as a sound letter, and the way you pronounce it is just that the way you pronounce the word actually is that you drop the pronunciation of that lam. You act as if there is no lam there, you pronounce it as such. So it's just like the lam there is actually useless, that you can't pronounce it. Okay, just pronounce your alif, then move straight to the letter. Like here we have Ashamsu. As you can see here, it is never pronounced as Al Shamsu. When you say Al Shamsu, you are not giving the shin shadda, and then you are pronouncing the wrong thing that way. So here we also have Thalji. I made a mistake. I read Athalaj. Athalji. As you can see, I didn't say al-thalji, but as-thalji. Pronounce the alif and jump straight to the letter, to the sound letter. As-thalji. Then we have an-nawmu. It can never be pronounced as al-nawmu because noon there takes shidda, and that's why it is sound letter. Sound letter would always take shidda immediately after alif and lam. So let's move on to moon letters. These are just simple, just you pronounce the alif and lam and move straight. Okay, so these are letters that when placed at the beginning of a word and preceded by the definite article al, meaning the pronunciation of the whole word, that is the word and the definite article, doesn't change and is read as it is. Yeah, you would have to read it as it is. So alif in al as fatha and the lam following it as sukun. It can be the sukun can be represented as a seku mark or a closed seku mark or a open seku mark. The open seku mark is just like greater than sign in English. Just the way you write a greater than, yes, that's how it's written. So indicating a pause. Unlike in the case of son letter, the lam is not dropped. So yeah, this is just like blah 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 theories. What you need to understand is just like you have to pronounce the lam. When you have any of the 14 moon letters, just pronounce the lam and move on. Why do you have to pronounce the lam? Because the moon letters doesn't have shidda. They don't have shidda immediately after alif and lam. And then you won't have letters that have sukun, two letters that have sukun that, and then they are beside each other. So you have to pronounce the lam and then move on. Just the example I gave at the beginning of this lesson, I said al-bab. So it's that means ba is a moon letter. Alif and lam is a definite article there, while bab is the word. So we say al-bab is a definite word. So the letters are just amza, then let me call it alif. And one thing you need to remember is that when alif takes a movement mark, or let me say dacitrical mark, you say that the alif um is Amza in that case. It's the same thing that Amza is that it is acting as Amza in that case. So you pronounce it the way you pronounce your Amza, and then you consider it as a consonant in this case, since Amza is a consonant. I think you understand that. If you don't understand, please go back to the previous lessons and watch video on that. So the letters are Amza, Ba, Jim, Ha, Kha, Ain, Ghain, Fa, Qaf, Kaf, Mim, Wow, Ha, and Ya. Like I said earlier, you don't have to memorize these letters. Just understand that, okay, for some letters, immediately after the Alif and Lam, you have Shidda. The letter will have Shidda. But when we're to, and then you would have to drop the Lam. That means you won't pronounce the Lam. But for more letters, pronounce the Lam, and then the letter doesn't have Shidda. So examples. We have al-qamaru, al-baytu, al-madrasatu. Then we have al-qalamu. Now, as you can see, we pronounce the L sound there. We pronounce the lam. Not like the sound letters where we don't have to pronounce the lam. Okay. So if you have any questions, please ask in the comment section. Now we have exercise or self-test. Find two examples for each of sun and moon letters, starting with the definite article alif and lam. So that means for each of Arabic letters, you have to find a word that starts with alif and lam, then you have the word next to it. So that means you would have 28 times 2, that's 56. 56 words in total. And make sure you pronounce, don't just find, make sure you pronounce them. Don't pronounce them to yourself, but maybe to someone that is above you in the aspect of Qur'an recitation, or probably a teacher. As usual, practice by reciting the Quran. We've been talking about a lot of rules. We've been talking about the basic knowledge of Quran recitation. And then you're almost through with that. So before we move on to the advanced one, you have to practice this first. Make sure you practice recite the Quran always. Like you can even spell down out. Like you spell alif fatha lam sukun aha fatha then al ha alhamdulillah, recite the alhamdulillah. Then you would see that you're improving. Before we talk about the intermediate, or let me say the advanced level of Quran recitation, like when we're talking about just read A's, blah blah blah, clinical. So you have to understand this first and be able to apply them. Now, make sure you like this lesson, share to your friends, and remember that anyone that learns how to recite the Quran through you, you would be rewarded by Allah. Bismillah, that's Sadaqatul Jariyah. And anytime the person recite the Quran, you would also be getting your reward. Bismillah. That's if you have a pure intention towards it. Now, so also make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you would receive notification whenever I drop any video. And also leave a comment if you have a question